Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Unhinged but Articulate podcast. I am your host, Caroline Cusinelli, the best-selling author of the Fated Blood trilogy. On the podcast, we'll be talking everything books, reading, and writing. And today I wanted to kick things off with a few questions from you guys. So just hopping right in here, the very first question I got was the process of writing A Liar's Twisted Tongue and what it meant to me. The process of writing A Liar's Twisted Tongue was kind of all over the place, to be honest. I've been writing my whole life, but this was the first time that I really wanted to get a book right. So it started with the first draft, as it always starts. I wrote the first draft at the age of 19 in 2 months, and when I finished it, I went back in to do what I call a red pen edit. So I was just rereading the book and looking for grammatical errors and anything like that. I really didn't know what I was doing. And upon 5% of rereading it, I realized that I needed to go through and do genuine structural edits, changing sentences, changing paragraph structures. So this is boring stuff. But I went back in, I started completely reforming the book, and then I realized I needed to know a little bit about my characters. So I took a break, started crafting a lot of their backstory, and then hopped back in and rewrote the book. And honestly, after that, it was a whirlwind. It doesn't feel like those beginning months really were considered writing A Liar's Twisted Tongue for me, because originally it was titled The Rising. The story was very different, but at the same time so similar, if that makes sense. There are a lot of key points that have stayed the same, but a lot of things that have changed, like Desdemona's name for one. In total, I think I rewrote the book 5 times, and I edited it at least 50 between just editing it myself and hiring editors and whatnot. It went through 2 copy edits, 1 developmental edit, and it was just a crazy experience. I feel like there's so much more to talk about, especially in the way that characters end up shaping the story themselves and guiding it themselves. And there would be so many times where I would want a specific outcome and the characters would take it in a different direction. And maybe one day I'll go all in with some spoilers to the book. But as of right now, I'm a little worried about bringing up specific points of the book that could potentially spoil it for someone. So maybe we'll do a tell-all spoiler episode. But what it means to me, This was a more interesting journey, was figuring out what it meant to me, because in the beginning, I just wanted to write a magical book. That was the whole point. I just wanted some magic, wanted to write something. I've always loved fantasy, always been drawn to it, always, would write it when I would write screenplays or books in my past. So I wanted fantasy. That much I knew. I started crafting the world building, the different creatures that you guys see and the worlds and what the worlds do. But it was one day down the line when I realized that Desdemona's story was really about vulnerability and what it means to find that and what it means to fear that. And that started to shape the story as a whole and the dedication. To anyone who's ever found it difficult to open their heart, I think the dedication is something along those lines. To anyone who's ever found it difficult to open their heart, to share the contents of their heart. Okay. To anyone who's ever found it difficult to share the contents of their heart. That is what the book means to me. That is what publishing it was for me. And that is what Desdemona's story is. She goes through a lot of hiding herself, even just basic emotional reactions, because she's scared that they're going to be used against her. So what A Liar's Twisted Tongue means to me and what it meant to write it was opening up to my own vulnerability and finding a way to share that with the world and feeling comfortable in it. And it's taken a while. It's a weird thing. It's a difficult thing when you put something so vulnerable and so open into the world. And I think that is exactly what Desdemona goes through in the trilogy, is learning to be vulnerable and put herself out there and just be herself. Okay, so now the next 2 questions are a bit more fun. We have, what would you use to define Desdemona in 3 words? So before we jump into this, the question is, how would you define Des and how would you define Lucian? And something that I've always thought about the 2 is that Desdemona is combative enough to fight with anyone, and Lucian is charming enough to captivate anyone. So off the bat, Desdemona's first word would be combative. it would also be, I think I'd call her a bit more impulsive and a bit more physical. Like, the way that she views the world is through like bodily sensations, whereas Lucien is viewing the world through like manipulation and like more mental aspects. So Lucien's word in that case would be manipulative, captivating, like a bit more, I would say logical, but that doesn't feel quite right. I think manipulative honestly takes over that mental aspect of him. So I'd say protective. He's very protective. My favorite moment in A Liar's Twisted Tongue. I have so many favorite moments. I think the whole book is my favorite moment. I don't know what I'd pick for my favorite moment. Probably something with Desdemona and Leolin, because they are my favorites. I do love them. I think in that final scene, not the final scene, in the scene after they fight the Kaffa, I would say when, I don't want to spoil anything, so if you don't want to be spoiled, it's a very small one, but just skip ahead a few seconds. But when they tell each other that they love each other and that they really realize how they have genuinely grown together despite all of the things that are just kind of standing between them in the world, I think that's a very beautiful moment, and it was very exciting to write for me. I remember, I wanted to write Leolin saying, "I love you too," and I just knew that those are words that he would never say. So, the "I feel the same about you, kid" really hones in on Leolin's character and the kind of walls that he has up, which really mirrors Desdemona and the walls that she has up, just in a gruffier, older kind of way. Someone asked for A Liar's Twisted Tongue sequel snippets. So that would be A Puppet's Broken String. That's book 2. I don't know, I don't have anything on the top of my head, but I do have the Google Doc opened right here. So let's see what we have. This is cool. This is a random snippet. It's where I'm editing right now. Everything goes silent. Every inch of my body burns with the need to fight, to torch whoever is attacking. I bite back a cry, watching the body that the boot belongs to. It reaches down, long, skinny fingers clutch onto the golden box. That's fun. I don't know. I feel like that's so, no context given. Maybe I'll give you, a romantic one, too. I'm not a good man. A good man wouldn't think about a girl the way I think about you. A good man wouldn't watch you kill a room full of people and think that my heart might as well have been on the floor with a lot of them. A good man would kill the creature that killed his father in front of his eyes. But here I am, unequivocally and yet again bound to you as if by something thicker than blood. I want to tell you guys more about the plot of A Puppet's Broken String, but we haven't officially announced it yet. It is very different than A Liar's Twisted Tongue, I would say. I hope you guys like it, but I'm so excited for you to read it. Okay, another person asked about the new book. Oh, what can I say? Desdemona spends some time away from the academy. Honestly, I'd say that maybe only 40% of the book takes place at the academy. So that's something interesting. And the end is crazy. The end is insane. I mean, sorry about that. Was Lucien hard to write about? I would love to do a full edit, or I'd love to do a full podcast episode about shaping characters and how I created them. But, I wrote the book 5 times, maybe 6. Lucien and Desdemona both went through crazy amounts of character changes through the drafts as I was really figuring out who these people were and, how they related to the story and how the story related to them. Like Lucien, his kind of thing in the first book is that he's very much hell-bent on revenge against the Arcanes, and it's a lot of the woes that brings into his life. And, what happens when you can't let go of something and, you just kind of end up dragging yourself down with it. His character arc is also about doing the things, like living your life from the lens of what you think other people want you to do, obviously to a very dramatic extent. I think that what I'm doing with fantasy, what most people do with fantasy, is just writing about very human things to a dramatic extent. So like Desdemona and Lucian, they're dealing with magic and the cost of it and power and whatnot, but it's still very human. They still are humans, and it's still touching on something to say about humanity and the mundane in a magical sense. But with Lucian in particular, I think that all in all, he might have been easier to write than Desdemona, in the sense that I became clear on his character arc and his character journey quicker than Desdemona's. I wrote her as different character archetypes. Every time I wrote a new draft, she became a different person, whereas Lucian stayed somewhat the same. He always, his family was always the way that his family is now, whereas Desdemona and, her and her mom, their relationship and the way they work has changed a lot as I've learned more about Desdemona. And something that I won't say because it would be a spoiler. But I would say actually Desdemona was harder. As for voice though, like character voice, A Liar's Twisted Tongue I originally wrote in third person. So when I was switching over to first person, I was so petrified of having distinct voices between Lucian and Desdemona. I was scared that I was going to fall into just writing them like, same author, different fonts kind of thing, which, that's up to the reader to decide how they feel about that. But, I think that they have like pretty distinct voices, just in my opinion. That was like not like the most challenging thing, but it was trial and error. It was something that I had to get used to. Like Lucian, he's a bit more, he lives more in his mind, where Desdemona lives in her body. He is definitely more strategic, where Desdemona is more impulsive, because Desdemona kind of has to be impulsive. She has things thrown at her, where Lucian has like time to kind of mull over the things that are going on around him and figure out the best way to deal with it. I mean, I think that is evident in the sheer amount of times that Desdemona is attacked and almost killed, where Lucian's kind of, the way that people attack him is more of a mental attack. So, writing that kind of character that's just more mental, more in his head, is a complete difference. I mean, I've been writing this character for so long now that it's like hard to recall really how he started. But I do remember I was writing chapter 8. It's currently chapter 8. And he's sitting in the room, the kingdom. And Kai, he gets a little vision that Kai is about to be like, hey, Lucian, what do you think? And Lucian kind of very quickly sees the situation, decides what he's going to do, looks through his options, and then has a very great answer that kind of appeases the people in the room. And that was very quickly when I realized the kind of character that Lucian would be. It was in those moments with Lucian that I was understanding that he was very methodical. It was in the moments when Desdemona first got to the academy and she's sitting with the headmistress and she's kind of concealing everything that she's feeling, and she's like, I want to squirm, but I will not do that. Like, I will not give them the satisfaction. I will stay composed, that I realized who Desdemona was. So, was Lucian hard to write about? No. I don't know. I mean, I think as a whole, writing has a lot of challenges. Figuring out the best way to tell a character arc, and then also letting the character have like their own say in what they want to do and how they want the story to go and how they want it to unfold. But I don't know how much I'd say it's hard, as it is delightfully challenging. It's like a good use of brain power, probably. So not hard, but delightfully challenging. That was very long-winded. Anyway, the next question is, what are Desdemona and Lucian doing right now? This is definitely an interesting question, because what they're doing for me is what is happening right now and where I'm editing book 2. But I'd say, like, from the end of book 1, what would they be doing right then? Desdemona would be spiraling mentally, and Lucien is walking into Azera's room and wondering where he went. And wow, that's so mean, I'm sorry. And then realizing what happened. I'm so sorry. That was very mean of me. Will we get a short story on Azera? Kind of. A little bit, yeah. I'll be announcing something soon, though, so get ready for that. Do I have any ideas of what my next books are going to be after the Fated Blood trilogy is done? Yes, I do in fact know the exact next 3 books that will be coming out after the Fated Blood trilogy. I've already written one of them. I can't talk much about it, but one will be a duology and the next will be a standalone if I decide to go with that trajectory in about a year when this trilogy wraps up. I'd also love to share more, but you guys know how it goes. Are you writing any other books? Yes, I'm writing a lot of books. Do you wear wigs? I don't know why that reminded me of that. Writing a lot of books. Yeah, I don't know how to answer that one quite yet because the only one that I can actually talk about is A Puppet's Broken String book 2, which I'm currently editing that one, plus another one that will be coming out soon. Wink, wink. On the back burner, I was working on the first book in the next set of books that I will be publishing after the Fated Blood trilogy, but I haven't worked on those since like the end of 2024, and I probably will not pick those back up again until book 2 is completely ready to be published on my end. Inspiration / how you came up with A Liar's Twisted Tongue. I was just having this conversation the other day with another author about the inspiration, and I think inspiration comes from everywhere, but right before I started writing this book, I was rereading The Mortal Instruments because that was my favorite when I was like 13, 14. So I was rereading those, and you know, I think that there are like a few story elements that I pulled from there, like the institution that the Shadowhunters are in, then the Academy. At the same time, the Academy has been shaped by so many different things. Like, for instance, Ninth House, the brutality and the hierarchy and the kind of political mechanisms that control Yale in that story were definitely an inspiration. That was very, very late into the writing process that became an inspiration. I think I read that book like a month or 2 before I published it, and I was editing down to the very last day of publishing A Liar's Twisted Tongue. So that was like loose inspiration. The Cruel Prince, of course. If you guys don't know, The Cruel Prince is one of my favorite fantasy trilogies in the world. The Cruel Prince and The Hunger Games, which I think tells you a lot about my book. Those are definitely my 2 favorite trilogies. Honestly, like some of the Vampire Diaries, like I look at Lucien a lot and I definitely think he's kind of a mix of Elijah Michelson and Damon Salvatore. Like those 2 characters to me definitely shaped him, and not quite Klaus. I mean, Klaus is like a little too insane, but Lucien has his moments. So I think that like the boys of that series definitely shaped Lucien and inspired something there. As for how I came up with it, a whirlwind of just different moments. In the beginning, my whole idea that sparked me wanting to write it was I wanted to write a series about star-crossed lovers, 2 people that could just never be together. My kind of quotes that I really honed in on is the most dangerous thing is to love, from the song Achilles Come Down, and a quote from The Mortal Instruments. Let me look it up. Don't know it off the top of my head, but it certainly shaped it. It's like a really like broody, moody, love is bad. I don't know how to find this quote. Okay, to love is to destroy, and to be loved is to be the one destroyed. Yeah, that's really hopeful and sweet, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, like those kinds of stories and like relationship archetypes definitely shaped Desdemona and Lucien in the beginning. But again, a lot of the things that shaped the beginning of the book changed a lot through multiple rewrites. I kind of always knew the trajectory of the trilogy and what would be happening in the next books, and every time something changed and edited it, got edited. I don't know how to say that word. it still picked up where it left off. Like the thread of the weapon, if you have read the book, that sort of plot line about this weapon being built between the planets was, a plot line that came about halfway through writing the book. And I realized that I had been writing around it the whole time. Like, it was exactly what was missing from what was happening. It was exactly what was needed for book 2 and book 3 for like exactly what I wanted to do with them. So, it was a very strange kind of process of coming up with it and just continuing to unlayer the different pieces, unveil the different layers, and realizing that I had just like almost just missed something, like as if I was deciphering it and just missed a piece, missed a clue, and then I would find it and then I would add it. What part of the story changed the most from my first draft to the final version? Probably Desdemona and Lucian's relationship, because that's such a core part of the book, and each time that I changed the characters, it changed the way that they interacted with one another. Like, for a while, they weren't enemies to lovers at all. Like, that was never a part of the book. And then it kind of just naturally came the more that I learned about them. There's something that Lucian does at the halfway mark of the book that kind of got thrown in near the end of writing, and then, ended up me rewriting it all again. But it really changed the trajectory of their relationship and the trajectory of the story and how it was told, because it totally changed the dynamics of Desdemona and how the world that she was living in was looking at her. And the last question: how would Desdemona describe Lucian in 5 words, and how would Lucian describe Desdemona in 5 words? That's an interesting one. Desdemona would describe Lucian as cocky, privileged, charming, annoying, and hard to look away from, maybe? Something along those lines. And Lucian would describe Desdemona as stubborn, reckless. These are not polite. Captivating, genuine, and probably also like hard to look away from. If I think of any other ones, I'll probably come back. So just follow me on Instagram and you'll see it on my story there. So I guess that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys want to pick up A Liar's Twisted Tongue, it's kind of like The Cruel Prince meets The Poppy War. So it has a lot of interesting dynamics going on, as you might have got that from the way I talked about it. But I'd love for you guys to follow up with me on Instagram so we can connect over there. I love just posting things on my stories and connecting with you guys and chatting with you on DMs. So make sure you follow up with me over there. I'll have all of my social media links in the bio of this podcast. So I hope to see you guys soon. Bye.